Welcome to the Golf Fitness Bomb Squad. I'm your host, Chris Finn, and I am excited to have back with us for a second time legendary Tom Patri. He is had some changes since the last time he was on the show. He was back on episode 131 for those of you who want to definitely check out. We went in depth on the 6 spokes that every golfer needs to succeed. But today we got some different topics. Tom, welcome back. I'm excited to have you.
It's nice to be here. Legendary just means that I'm really old. Is that right? That's all it means.
It means people need to listen to what you say, Tom. That's what it means.
Wow. Wow.
But I want to. There's been some. We were talking before we hit record here that you're down in Florida full time now, which is awesome, and you've renovated the whole learning center. I want to hear about it. What'd you guys do, and what's it like now?
Well, first of all, down here full time is a blessing, Chris. When I was given the job as director of player development at Twin Eagles, it was a blessing in the sense that it's 3 miles from the house, as opposed to 43 years 43 years going back and forth between Florida and the Northeast.
Yeah.
So to be home all summer, just the fact that I'm here has been unbelievable and great. Twin Eagles, for those who don't know, is a 36-hole facility in North Naples, Florida. The primary golf course is at Jack Nicklaus. Great practice facility, maybe the best practice facility in Southwest Florida. I kind of inherited a learning center that was, we'll be polite and just say it was tired. And it hadn't been really touched in any way, shape, or form in about 22 years.
Yeah.
So at the end of my first season last year, the powers that be came to me and said, what do you think? And I said, well, I think you should knock it down and start again. And they said, well, we're not in a position to do that right now, but we will do that in the future. But what can you do in the meantime? I said, well, we have to definitely clean this place up and make it relevant again.
Mm-hmm.
So they gave me a budget, and George Carone, our director of maintenance, not director of grounds, not director of maintenance, and I kind of put our heads together, and we gutted the place basically, carpet paint, power wash, furniture, new technology, and then just did the window dressing stuff. I had so many things here in my office and in past buildings, really cool, cool golfy stuff to put on the walls. It just turned out great. The membership has been incredibly responsive, and it's we have V1 body track and TrackMan in there. It's just a really user-friendly environment and a great learning environment. So it's been a blessing.
That's awesome. Yes. And how are you using all that technology, with the members and the lessons? And I think that's always a question I get from a lot of golfers is like, how should I expect a good instructor to be using technology or not using it? Are there times to you always use it? Is there times to and not to? What have you found?
That's a great question. I've done some talks on that with PGA members, and it always goes back to a great question that I was a part of. Somebody asked Butch Harmon one time, who's a friend, said, "Do you need technology to give a lesson?" He goes, I've given a lot of pretty successful lessons without any technology.
Yeah, he's done all right.
I think one of the things technology does, I think it does 2 things. I think for the golfer whose IQ is not very high, you have a chance to educate them and make them truly understand cause and effect, which most of them haven't got a clue about, and don't really understand why the ball does what it does. And they've been misled by some myths and legends that aren't necessarily true. And 2, for the guy who's a little bit more rambunctious, you can stop the argument.
Yeah, we've all had that. Yeah,
you say something to him, he goes, "No, that's not what I'm doing." I go, "Well, let's take a few swings, get some data, and get some film."
Yeah,
and I'll tell you a funny story about that, Chris. I had a guy in about it's got to be about 6 weeks ago now. Came in first time lesson taker. And he gave me the typical 15-minute rundown of what he knows he's doing wrong.
Yeah.
And none of it made much sense to me. He hit a few shots. I said, let's capture some data and some film. Yeah. So we captured about 12 pieces of data, 12 swings, and 12 pieces of film. And I showed him factually that what he thought he was doing was not, in fact,
what was occurring.
I showed him the data. I explained the data. I showed him the film, and the film matched the data perfectly, actually, which it doesn't always do, but it did in this case. Yeah. And he told me that He didn't agree. And I said, you don't agree with me. You don't agree with the data. He goes, I don't agree with any of it. I said, so you're telling me that the TrackMan data is not really what's going on and the film is wrong. He goes, I am. I said,
Where do you
okay.
go from there?
Okay, so I'll tell you what, I think we agree, we can agree that we disagree,
Yeah.
because I think this is exactly what's going on. He goes, I think the lesson's over. I go, I think it is. He goes, you're not going to charge me? I said, no charge. You have a nice day. And he left. And
Wow.
so I've gotten to the point at 66 years old that I don't really, um, and I used to be much different. I don't really argue with him.
Yeah.
I don't put up a fist fight anymore. I, I hope you had a nice time, sir. In the last 15 minutes we spent together, and you might want to go to somebody else and get a different opinion. That's fine.
Yeah.
No
So
problem.
what I'm really curious, what was he saying that was going on and what
So
were
he
you
was,
seeing?
so he was, I'm trying to remember, I'll give you a pretty close representation. He was probably 7 to 8 over the top and 6 or 7 down.
Oh wow.
And then, obviously with an open face.
Yeah.
That face was wide open in comparison to the path. And then really big pull slices.
Yeah.
And he thought that he wasn't over the top at all, that it was just a face problem, and he wasn't, and he felt like he wasn't down at all. Meanwhile, it was funny, after he left, he had warmed up outside on grass, just outside. I've always warmed up outside before I break
Yeah.
in. After he left, I went outside, and there were some divots that looked like trenches to China going down and left. And I said, oh my God.
Well, I know where he warmed up.
Yeah, exactly. Here's the footprint right here. So people like that just, they came for a fist fight, and I'm not.
Yeah.
I don't put the gloves on anymore.
Well, speaking of fist fights, I've had a few, not actual fist fights, but definitely verbal disagreements, particularly in the junior realm, with parents and around what their kids need to be doing or don't need to be doing, or you know, anyway, I've had parents telling me that if they lift a 10-pound dumbbell, it's going to stunt their growth. I've had kids, parents telling me that in the middle of the season, their kid needs to be going incredible, doing tons of volume, and needs to be in the gym 5 days a week, and having to tell them no, they're gonna no, that's not accurate based on where they're at. Like, have you had that on the instructional side? Because I've definitely seen it on the fitness side, more than I would like to report, but it happens.
Chris, how old are you?
I'm 40.
So I've got 26 years on you.
Yeah.
So I just passed 75,000 lesson hours.
Holy cow.
So
you've had no parent issues then, I would imagine.
I've had 75,000 parent issues. So 2 weeks ago, I'm teaching during the middle of the day, and my phone starts blowing up. I mean, blowing up, and I'm always try to be attentive to getting back to people right away.
Right. Yep.
And I'm kind of looking at these text messages while I'm giving this lesson, and it's a junior parent, a mother, who is, my son's at a tournament and he's doing this, and he just missed a 4-foot putt, and he did this and he did this, and I don't know why we haven't addressed this stuff. And and meanwhile, by the way, great kid.
Yeah.
Great kid. Not as advanced as he thinks he is, but he's got some physical talent.
Yeah.
His definition for work ethic and mine are not the same.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
She doesn't play golf at all, and dad is about 100 handicapper.
Sounds like a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, turns out he's at the tournament watching his son. She's in Chicago. He's texting her and she's texting me.
Oh God.
And I basically said to her, listen, we'll address this at some point, blah, blah, blah. And the phone keeps going. Going. And to the point where I probably got 25 or 30 text messages in a row.
Oh my God.
So he works with a sports psychologist named Dr. Bob Winters in Orlando, who I recommended.
Mm-hmm.
I get done with my day that day, and I call Bob, and I said, this is what happened. He goes, Jesus Christ, Tom. I think it's time for an intervention.
Yeah.
So we had an intervention on a Zoom call, parents, student, Dr. Bob Winters, and myself. And one of the things that came out, and Bob is real. I don't know if you know Bob Winters, but you should have him on. He's terrific. He's terrific. Um, he said to him, Christian, give me a typical rundown on your practice schedule and your practice day. How long do you practice for? And he says, well, about 2 hours a day. He goes, you're out of school right now, aren't you? He goes, yeah. He goes, it's daylight about 14 hours a day now. He goes, what are you doing the other 12 hours? He goes, and I jump in. I said, listen, here's the deal. Number one, there's three things you can be. It's up to you. You can be good, because I think you already are good.
Mm-hmm.
You can be great, or you can be elite. And they all have different requirements.
Mm-hmm.
He goes, well, I want to be elite. I go, well, 2 hours a day, pal, you're not even in the ballpark. I said,
Yeah.
first of all, you came to the sport a little bit on the late side, which he did.
Yeah.
Also a lacrosse player. I said, you're physically talented. You're not a dummy, which he's not. I said, but 2 hours a day, pal, I'd just be warming up at that point,
Yeah.
I might have stretched for 45 of those minutes, and I maybe hit a few putts and hit a few chips. I'm just getting into my day.
Yeah.
I said, that's number one. Number two, mom and dad, listen, your golf IQ isn't terrifically high. I said, you need to let Bob and I do our jobs, and you need to be great parents. I said, you know, I don't need any help. I've done this for a while.
Yeah.
And Bob certainly has done it for a long time, and he's very good at what he does. So you're paying us to do our job. Please allow us to do that.
Yeah.
I can promise you when Christian comes back for a golf tournament that I ask him a lot of questions about what went on in that tournament. I ask him for stats. I ask him for feedback. I have a pretty clear picture of what went on or what didn't go on. I said, I did not know that he thought a good work day was 2 hours. So we learned something.
Yeah. Right.
So I think you need to kind of sit back and say, I'm saying to the kids, if I want to play against kids that are equally talented as I am, if talent was equal,
Yeah.
it's not always equal. And one kid is working 12 hours a day, and one kid's working 10 hours a day, and I'm working 2 hours a day. I'm going to get my ass kicked.
Mm-hmm.
Just apples to apples. So, and sometimes those interventions go well, as you know, and sometimes they don't. It seems like so far they drank the Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
So far. But I also said to Bob privately, I said, you know what, we'll see. We got to give it a little time because
Yeah.
everybody walks the walk and talks the talk, but how much truth is in that walk,
Sure.
time.
Well,
So we'll see.
I've had some of those interventions where, first of all, good for you to actually have that conversation. I think a lot of coaches will just, I've seen, unfortunately, being the fitness person involved in the team and that coach, I've just seen a coach get absolutely run over and
That ain't happening, big man. That ain't happening.
that don't happen to Tom. But I've had some interventions where it's actually kind of a funny timing. So we had two kids from Raleigh. They were same. One kid, I guess, was probably 2 years older, so they were close though. One went to Carolina, one went to State. The second young man, he actually just won the NCAA's down at Ole Miss, and I remember we had two interventions. One with him and his mother and his dad. He kind of wasn't really doing what he needed to be doing, and it was kind of like, hey man, if you want to be good, like these are kind of similar conversation. The other kid at the time was, it seemed to be putting in all the work. It was like, at that moment, if you had to tell me in 5 years who would be holding an NCAA, like it was not the one who currently is. It was totally the other way around. We have the intervention, and long story short, one kid's holding the national championship. The other kid doesn't play golf anymore. And it was an immediate, when you had that conversation, it just went like the wrong way. Or ultimately, I think he's happy in life, but the parents just totally were unreceptive. It didn't, ultimately, I think the young man's where he needs to be. But have you had those sorts of conversations where, yeah.
Sure. I mean, I've had those conversations with parents who've been totally resentful, that
Mm-hmm.
don't tell me how to parent my kid. I'm not trying to tell you how to parent your kid. I'm telling you how to have a successful golf
Golf career. Yeah.
I'm not telling you how to parent. I said I'm a parent, and I wouldn't want anybody to tell me how to parent.
Right.
But your golf plan doesn't work. If your golf plan was a business plan, I wouldn't be investing.
Yeah,
I would not do
exactly.
it. I would be writing you a check. So I say that. I say, I mean, whether I have a fitness guy on my team or a sports psychologist on my team or myself doing the X's and O's stuff, um, I surround myself with pretty competent people, you
Hmm.
know, and sometimes defer those people. Like sometimes I'll talk to Dr. Bob and I'll say, Bob, am I going about this the right way with my day to day with this guy? Or should I
Yeah.
take a different approach? So I'm open to be wrong,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
I'm wrong plenty. I'm wrong
Yeah.
plenty.
Well,
But as far as the parental over the top helicopter type situation,
they're tough.
I'll pass on that one.
Yeah.
Take a
Well,
pass.
so like, so if we go to the other side of the coin, for, parents listening or juniors listening, yeah, what does a successful kind of parent child coach your team relationship look like? Like, what are the ones that you've had the most success with? What have been kind of some common themes you've seen or
Well,
interactions?
I think the parent that really understands um, that they've hired an expert in whether it's the physical side or the mental side or the
Hmm.
X's and O's side, and says, "Listen," and they say to me, "Listen, I don't know anything about golf. I don't know crap about playing competitive golf, so
Yeah.
I need some guidance too."
Yeah.
They actually ask me, "Can I talk to you a little bit and tell me how do you want me to behave? How do you
Yeah.
where do you want me in this? What lane do you want me in?" You know,
Hmm.
I've had that parent too, which has been incredibly, you know, makes your job so much easier.
Yeah.
You know, and I'll tell you the other thing about kids. They, I think they really sense tension. You
Yeah.
know, I've had kids where they come off the golf course hysterical because, and I don't mean necessarily hysterical, but in a not a good frame because they look over in the gallery and there's dad and he hit a shot and he's like got his head down, shaking his head, like,
Yeah.
they know they read that,
Yeah.
and that's not a positive vibe, man. I mean, um, so I've had the good parent too, and which is makes my job easier, makes Bob's job easier, makes your job easier, and makes the kid much more relaxed,
Yeah.
much more relaxed. It's funny. I'll tell you a funny. I told them a story. So I tell the story all the time. I have a kid who won 17 junior events, pretty good sized junior events, won 5 men's kind of regional amateur events, pretty good sized regional event, won 5 college events, and won an NCAA Division II national championship. And he had never had a golf lesson, and his parents didn't know anything about sports, anything about golf, and had never watched him play golf ever in his life. And the kid was pretty functional, obviously, pretty
Hmm.
successful. Um, had kind of made his own way, and they said, "I don't believe you. Who was this kid?" And I said, "It was me. It was
I
me."
was I was gonna say, did he play at Florida Southern?
Yeah, I mean, my parents weren't athletic. They didn't play. My father played golf. They didn't really play golf. Um, they weren't athletic. They're both past now. They never saw me hit a shot in the golf tournament. I didn't ever have a lesson. I didn't have fitted golf clubs, and I don't know really why I was successful. Truth, Chris, I don't. I just was passionate. I was all in the deep end of the pool.
Hmm.
You know, I don't consider myself a great athlete by any stretch of the imagination. I was Joe average at every other sport I played. But
I
I,
guess you practiced more than 2 hours a day, though.
yeah, probably, and I said to this kid actually during the Zoom, actually, I said to him, I said, you've got, if you're not passionate about this, no matter how good I am at my job, you are at your job, and Bob is at his job. If you're not really passionate about this, you don't really love what you're doing, you're not going to be successful.
Right.
And the one thing I was, when the sun came up, I was out of bed, and and
Hmm.
and I remember my parents calling me for dinner, and it was pitch black outside. Like, where are you?
Yeah.
But I loved it, and I
Yeah.
think that's a big component, man. That's a huge
For sure.
component.
Well, speaking of loving it, I love the U.S. Open. It's as we're recording this, the U.S. Open. It's U.S. Open week. I know you and Bob Ford, the legendary golf professional out of Oakmont, are good friends. You've gotten to play there a bunch of times. And it sounded like we were talking before we started recording that you've actually played it up there, similar conditions that it's going to be at. Give me some insight in terms of, what's it like? I've never been up there, played there, anything. So, and a lot of our listeners obviously haven't either.
I tell people all the time, if you unfortunately get sent to hell, you're a golfer, you have to play Oakmont and Carnoustie for the rest of your life every day. It's eternity. Under open conditions, whether it's British Open or Open
Yeah.
Championship or U.S. Open. I was fortunate enough to play. I probably played there a dozen times. Most of them with Bob. Um, I played there the Sunday before the Monday start for the Cabrera Open.
Hmm.
So I played it. It was already in that condition, obviously.
Yeah.
And that was a long time ago. I was a lot younger, and I was still playing a lot of good golf. And I would tell you that I was glad there wasn't a scorecard. I was glad there wasn't a scorecard. It was. I don't think the public, no matter how much they see, and it was so much great coverage now. It's so different as the years go on because of streaming and because of TV coverage, because of camera angles and in-depth coverage, the Golf Channel, whatever it happens to be. No matter how much the public sees it, um, they have no appreciation for how hard that golf course is in these conditions.
Hmm.
Uh, it's a long golf course. It's not a tricked up golf course. It's right in front of you. You can see everything. It's not like you have to go over a hill and through the clown's mouth or anything.
Yeah.
Right in front of you. Um, it's incredibly well bunkered. The bunkers are very penal. The putting surfaces are undulating, and they are. I can't explain how quick is under these conditions.
Really.
If you see a guy hole a 15-footer during the Open this week, you have no concept of how good a putt he just hit. I mean, no
Really.
concept. And then, of course, the rough right now is documented 5.25 inches, and it's thick and gnarly, and it's probably going to get a little wet up there. So advancing the golf ball is a near impossibility. You basically just hack it out sideways. And so if you're on a 500-yard, for example, in today's world, a 500-yard par four,
Hmm.
and you drive it in the left rough, and then you hack it out sideways, now you're hitting your third shot from a pretty fair distance into a par
Yeah.
four with a green that's tilted this way. That's rolling at 14.5. Well, have fun with that. You enjoy that.
Jesus. So like, because I'm a stats guy, so just to put this in relative, so normal PGA Tour 50-50 distance is an 8 foot putt, right? Where do you like to put in perspective how hard these greens are? Where do you think that line is? It now a 5 foot putt? Like, is the 50-50? Like how much harder is it?
A 2.5 foot putt,
No way.
3 foot putt, maybe.
Really?
Now, and now, of course, let me clarify that, Chris. It'd be fair. Is that an uphill or downhill or left or right or right?
Correct. Right. How much slope is there? Yeah.
I remember the first time I played with Bob there. The second hole was on that golf was a relatively short par four. Drove it down there perfect. Pin was back right, and I just a long time ago. I can remember this. I hit I think 7 or 8 iron in. Really nice shot, about 8 or 10 feet above the hole. And of course, I'm a rookie in the situation,
Hmm.
and I'm licking my chops, kind of get up there, and I read it. I knew it was downhill. It looked quick, and I hit what I thought was a really good putt in terms of pace and line, and it happened to catch the high edge just a little bit, and my next putt was about 30 footer,
God.
and they were laughing their asses off, because they play there every day. They know,
Yeah, they know that if you're over the hole, you're dead.
and
Yeah.
and I was like, what in the hell just happened? Now you're gunshot. You're on the second green, and you got
Yeah.
15 holes to go, and you're like, holy Christ! Now what do I? Now what do I do? Right? Basically, and they were really enjoying that. They had a lot of fun laughing at me. But and I grew up in the Northeast. I grew up playing fast, firm golf courses. As a kid, I was blessed to play a lot of good places. Um, Shinnecock, Wingfoot,
Hmm.
so many good Westchester, so many good Maidstone National, so many good, fast, firm golf courses. Oakmont is a different animal. And these conditions are very, very different. And there will be some real carnage this week. There will be some people that leave there bleeding, hoping to, survive and breathe the next day. It's tough.
So I'm curious if we kind of bring this back to the amateur. Obviously, for the professional, there's going to be some serious mental pressure. The course management obviously is going to be huge in terms of apparently don't leave yourself 10 foot above the hole putts.
No,
uh,
I would
yeah,
advise. if you can help it.
Yeah. So, going, to like an amateur who maybe, obviously we're not playing the US Open, but maybe they're going to a member or, a golf course that is playing tougher, obviously not Oakmont tough, but, tougher where there are similar kind of conditions. How do you kind of like, as an instructor, like if you were coaching an amateur going to a course that was going to play tough like that, obviously scale it from, you know, uh, you know, Rory and those guys this week to
Right.
me playing maybe next week, right? Where, what are the kind of thoughts that you think of approaching a really tough test like that in terms of helping to keep that score as low as possible or as manageable?
Let me answer that question two ways, but
Yeah.
part A to part B. I think the part A of that is most club players that they come to me, they say to me, I said, and what's your handicap? And they say it's 14.
Hmm.
I said, you know what that means to me? They go, no, I'm a 14 handicap. I said, well, it means you make 14 mistakes a round.
Hmm.
Okay. 14 and 18 holes, you make a mistake.
Yeah.
Okay. They go, I never looked at it that way. So, well, that's what it means to me. I said, the second thing is most of you guys, and if you're going to be a student of mine, we're going to change this. You play match play events, a NASA or something like that, and somebody says to you, that's good, pick it up. So that's not good with me.
Yeah.
Golf to me is it goes in the hole. You finish
Yeah.
in the hole. So they said, well, I can make those. I said, okay, so we're going to have a playing lesson at some point, and we're going to start on number one tee, and there's nothing called a mulligan. It doesn't exist in the rule book.
No two off the first.
No two off the first. It's got to be the first one's live.
Yeah.
And the second thing is we're going to play 9 holes, and we're going to count every shot, and you're going to hole out every putt.
Yeah.
And suddenly the 14 is an 18, and the 18 is a 22, and the 22 is a 6, right? You get the picture. So I train them differently from the start. And then because they can do that and they understand that's how golf should be played and that's how they approach golf, they're more prepared to go to other places. Okay. Right. And then when they do go to other places, like you're talking about, they're more difficult. If it's a member or a member guest, I teach them by doing playing lessons. I teach them how to play a practice round. We're not going out to play. If you want to play well, if you want to be successful, we're not going out there and have 6 beers on the cart and we're going to fucking slap it around and have the day before. We're going to go out there and really understand the golf course that you've never been on and what the nuances of that golf course are, what to look for, and what shots to play where and why and when, and really prepare yourself mentally, physically for the next day because you had a day to really understand the golf course you've never been on before, not just kind of stroll around. Half the times they play a practice round. I said, and what's the 14th hole? And they go, I can't remember what 14 is.
14th hole or 14th drink.
Exactly. Well, that's the problem. You just played a practice round. You can't remember the 14th hole. So
that's a problem.
That's a problem, right?
Yeah.
So I try to change that mindset a little bit. And
so how do you walk them through, they're playing, I don't know, the third hole of their practice round. It's a par 4, 400 yard. Like, how do you, or, a tee shot, an approach shot, how do you kind of walk them through how to evaluate that?
I said to them, you stand on the 4th tee of this hole and it's 400 yards and there's some bunkers out there. Do you know how far it is to reach that bunker on the left? Well, no. I said, well, did you shoot it? You know how far it is to carry the bunker on the left? No. Did you shoot it? How far is that bunker on the right? Well, the bunker on the right's a lot shorter. I can definitely knock it over that bunker on the right. What's behind that bunker on the right? Well, there's a lake. Well, you don't want to knock it over that bunker on the right. There's no reason to do that. You can't parry the bunker on the left. Is it necessarily a driver off this tee?
Mm-hmm.
Because your first job off the tee, I think, is to get that son of a bitch in play, right? Before we do anything, let's get this thing.
Can confirm.
Get that on the short grass, and then we can go from here.
Right.
I had a great situation, Chris. I'm going to go back a long ways. During my days at Westchester, I had the privilege of working with Tom Kite a little bit,
mm-hmm.
and we spent a little time on the ranges one particular day, and he said to me, "Would you mind coming out and walking 9 holes with me? I just want you to see me on the golf course." I said, no. And obviously it was my home golf course, and we were playing the Buick Classic there.
Mm-hmm.
And we got on the 2nd tee, which was like, we're going back a long ways. We're going back into early 90s. So the equipment was different.
Yeah, very different, yeah.
And 2 was about a 440-yard, pretty hard par 4. And Kite was not very long.
Right, yeah.
And he hit 3 wood off the tee. And that kind of surprised me a little bit,
Yeah.
And left himself a much longer shot in. We got to the next hole, which was a par 5 for us, that membership, that during the tournament they played as a par 4,
mm-hmm.
about 460 or 470. He had a 3 wood off the tee.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't say anything, and I'm kind of going, what is he doing? And we got to the 2nd hole, which is another really long, hard par 4. and he hit 3 wood off the tee. I said, okay, timeout. I got to ask a question. Let's talk. I said, 3 wood on 2, 3 wood on 3, 3 wood on 6. I go, there 3 of the longest holes on the golf course. He goes, yeah, you get pretty long rough out here, don't you? I go, yeah. He goes, let me ask you a question. If you stood on the second tee, the one you're talking about to me here, and it was a 440-yard par five, what would you be thinking? I said, I'd be thinking I have a chance to make eagle.
Yeah.
And if you're standing on the par four, it's 440 yards, and it's a par four. What are you thinking? I hope I can make four. Well, they're both 440. Why are you thinking to make three on one and you can make four and you can't make four on the other? He said, is that a mindset, or did the whole change suddenly, or is it did the
Yeah.
geography change? I said, no. He goes, that's your mindset. If you have a short par five, you're thinking three, but if it's a long par four, you're thinking, oh boy, I got to really do something special to make a four.
Right.
He said, so at the end of the week, I want you to look at my stroke average on those 3 holes. And by the way, it was the second lowest stroke average in the tournament that week, hitting
Wow.
3 wood, because he put it in play. He knows he has a great short game. He's trying to make 3 fours and get out of there.
Yeah.
But the mentality is he's playing 3 short par fives, right? Which I thought was really interesting, So from that day on, I started looking at long par fours very, very differently.
Yeah.
My first job is I got to if I hit this thing out of play on a long par four,
You're really toasted.
I'm bringing 5 and maybe 6 into play.
Right.
But if I hit it in play, and it's a short par five, I'd be thinking I can make an eagle, which would be a 3. And it changed the way I played those holes totally, how I viewed them.
So I love that off the tee. So now let's say you've gotten it in play and now you're going to a green. How do you think through,
Well, the first thing we don't realize is the difference in that at that time period. I was still playing golf and I was still a lot younger.
Yeah.
And we had different equipment. Obviously, my driver went 265 or 270, and my 3 wood went 245 or 250. So we're only talking about 12 to 15 yards, 20 yards at the most difference. But if I got it in play now, I certainly feel a lot better about that. Number one.
Yeah.
And number two, I'm trying to hit it. And now I go to my Calvin Pete story. I spent some time with Calvin when he was alive. Do you know that name?
Oh, yeah, very much so. Yep.
So Calvin's record was as far as greens and regulation and fairways hit.
It's pretty high.
Yeah, he led the tour for 7 years in both.
Yeah, exactly.
So I said, what are you thinking about here? He goes, I'm going to hit it in the middle of the green. Well, the pin's way back right. I'm going to hit it in the middle of the green. I'm going to hit it in the fairway and hit it in the middle of the green. And he said, there are 3 kinds of pins on the golf course. I said, go ahead. He goes, I use this all the time now, reds, yellows, and greens. Reds, we never go for, ever. I don't care if it's a wedge, we don't go at them.
Yeah.
Yellows, depending on how we're playing, how much control we have that day, it's a possibility, but not a definite. And greens, we go for every time. And he goes, if you look at most superintendents, when they set up golf courses in the tour, they generally set up 6 reds, 6 yellows, and 6 greens. So it becomes a patience game. When are we going to take the opportunity? When are we going to go? So I've taken Tom Kite and Calvin Pete and kind of put them together in a philosophy of how to play a golf course and how to approach a golf course and how to understand what we're looking at on the golf course when I talk to my my tournament players.
That's amazing. So, and does the green, is there a time where a green light flag based on where you are, the distance or anything like that turns to a yellow? Or
it's possible. I mean, if we drove it down the middle of a fairway but had a lie where the ball was way above our feet or something like that, or way below our feet because the fairway was undulated, or we hit it into a divot, or something like that, and then we had to make a kind of different judgment call. All those conditions come into play, and all those situations come into play. But if we drive it in the middle of the fairway, the lie is good, and it's a green, we're going.
Yeah,
we're going.
And I think one of the I started playing tournament golf a couple of years ago. I don't know if you know Ted Kegel up here in Raleigh, and Teddy took me out, and he was funny. I was a scratch player at the time. My second lesson with him, I asked him how to. I was self-taught. I said, "Can you teach me how to hit a bunker shot? 'Cause I just do it. I don't know." So we did that. And the next one we go, and I said, "All right, I don't know how to play." I was like, "I don't know how to play a practice round." I was like, and I think one of the key things he told me around the greens was you got to pick a place. It was like once he told me, I felt like an absolute moron. He's like, "Yeah, you should really mark where you don't want to hit the ball." And if you go long left and it's dead, hey, that's no good. So the miss would be short and right. For an amateur who's going somewhere new, and obviously you've got your red, greens, and and
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
yellows. How do you take into account that? And because I love the red, yellow, green kind of mentality from Count Peep.
So we're gonna play the 18th hole at TPC.
Hmm.
Funny. And obviously there's this thing called a lake left, so that's not an option, right?
Water's no bueno.
No bueno. And it's a pretty good driving hole, and it's from a tee you and I might play, not the tour, it might be 420,
Hmm.
430. So and it goes left hard, and you run out of fairway right.
Hmm.
And if we hit our longest shot and we cut it a little bit, we'll hit it through the fairway.
Yep.
So maybe we hit 3 wood down there, and we have 15 yards longer than we might have if we hit a perfect driver. But we got to dry. It's in the middle of the fairway, and now the pin is back left. And that green
Yeah.
goes left in the back. I don't know if you've played it before, but that green goes left a little bit in the back left.
Yep.
So that's a red, right?
Yeah.
But I've got in my skill set right now, I probably still have hybrid left or 4 iron or 5 iron left. So I'm Calvin Peete, man. I'm hitting it in the center of that green, and I am not looking at that pin. It's not in my radar at all. And I might leave myself a 30-footer, but I'm on the green at 2 and I'm dry and I'm still alive, right?
Yeah.
Conversely, if we're playing the first hole of TPC, which is a relatively short par 4, yet there is some crap on the right and some bunkers on the right, but the hole kind of shapes a little bit left to right a little bit, and I hit a fade. I'm a cutter.
Hmm.
So I'm really comfortable there. On 18 goes left as a cutter. That doesn't feel good to me, so I'm
Right.
pretty conservative. But on one, I might hit driver on one, even though it's a tight hole, because I drive the whole row. But it's a shape that matches my eye.
Matches your shot.
So,
Yeah.
so some of it's comfort too.
Yeah.
So how comfortable I am in the what I'm seeing optically in front of me. Holes that go left for me, real hard left, they don't feel good to me. They never
They,
have.
they don't feel good for me either, Tom.
So
We're both faders.
so So I'm gonna hit a more conservative shot, maybe right center, and the hole might play a little longer, but I'm in play.
Right.
And then I get one that goes left to right, and even if it's relatively tight, it really fits my eye. I might go there. I
Yeah.
might go. So I think you have to take that into account too.
100%. Well, Tom, I know you're busy, and I want to thank you for the time today. This has been a lot of fun. Little switch. I love the stories and just the experiences that you've had in your 75,000
It
hours.
just
That's still
means it
wild.
just means that I'm old, Chris. That's all that it means.
Legendary. I'm sticking with legendary. It's my podcast. I can say what I want, Tom.
Yes, coach. I understand, coach. I understand.
Well, Tom, just remind everyone if they want to kind of get in touch with you, follow you, kind of keep up with what you're doing. What's the best places for them to do that?
First of all, tell Ted Kegel I said hi.
I will. I'll tell him.
I'm a Ted Kegel fan.
Oh, I love Ted. He's awesome.
He's a good
I'll
man.
shoot him a note, let him know. Yeah.
Please tell him I said hi. Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, and then the website, tompatri.com. Pretty simple. And then Twin Eagles in North Naples, Florida.
Fantastic. Well, we'll make sure, guys, everyone listening, we'll have that in the show notes for you. And Tom, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. It's
Yes,
been
brother.
a pleasure having you on round two.
Anytime.
And everybody else,
Anytime.
thanks so much for hanging out with me here on the Golf Fitness Bomb Squad. And we'll catch you on the next episode.